Namaskar and welcome to DGI with Sri and Sri. Today is the 31st of August, Tuesday, and this is episode number 236. Here are the main points. 3 resolutions on Afghanistan in UN, and there is no mention of Taliban. And why? There are 15 nations and any resolution must be unanimous. Biden administration refuses to release information on ISIS-K strike while Taliban claims there were civilian casualties. India wants border dispute resolution with China via dialogue and not unilateral actions, says Indian Defense Minister. And the S&P 500 sets another record high on Monday as the stock market continues to rise in the final days of August. In global news, the Federal Aviation Administration says that the Kabul airport has no air traffic control and that US has withdrawn 1 day ahead of schedule. Namaskar, Sridhar ji, and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar, good morning to everybody, and looking forward to another great day. And yes, sir, this Kabul airport is now free of anybody. And in fact, the good news is there is no air traffic control. So anybody who has the courage and the capability to land and take off can do so. So that seems to be the case.
And at UNSC, United Nations Security Council, India calls on Israel and Palestine to exercise restraint. 3 resolutions on Afghanistan in UN, and there is no mention of Taliban. And why? There are 15 nations, and any resolution must be unanimous. EU says Afghanistan shows need for rapid reaction forces, and Biden administration refuses to release information on the ISIS-K strike, while Taliban claims there were civilian casualties. Sridharji, yesterday we touched upon this in a different show where the questions are being raised whether this was really happening or not, as to how the United States could have acquired so much intelligence when there are no boots on the ground. So your take on the whole thing.
First and foremost, I think the United Nations Security Council resolution is very telling. So we can guess as to who the potential countries in the 5+10 could have been. Obviously there's going to be China, there's going to be Russia, there's going to be a couple of other nations, and we'll not be surprised if the United States is one of them, because US has been speaking of partnership with Taliban in making sure that there is an evacuation that gets through. But who could have been the dissenting nations? Clearly, France and UK could have been, because they would have stated that you need to make the Taliban accountable for anything that's happening in Afghanistan, and be very transparent given the chaos. And I think India wanted to make the case around the presence of the terrorists, operating in Afghanistan. But having said that, one of these few people could have made sure that there is no resolution which references Taliban. With regard to the question that you are raising about Taliban or intelligence, as to how United States could have got intelligence on ground, my take on that is that United States seems to have very good footprint on ground. Please don't forget, we reported a couple of days ago, the CIA director, Mr. William Burns, was on ground meeting with the Taliban in Kabul. So there should be, some data coming from some of these forces. It's also possible that, because I don't want to second guess, but there's also a possibility that some of the resistance forces were also there on ground and sending information. So obviously there is some network of people on ground still with whom they are able to gather intelligence. But having said that, well, what exactly was the strike? Unless and until we know the truth, I just don't believe we can come to a conclusion that there was some kind of a target, having, with Taliban saying that 10 civilians killed on ground, and they're on ground. So, and one of the reasons why Biden administration may not be revealing information is that this is an event that could have gone the opposite way.
And Biden to welcome Ukraine President Zelensky today in a show of solidarity between two countries. Now that Afghanistan is sort of laid to but in a way, Ukraine is beginning to heat up again, sir?
Well, I think that it's the meeting is today, and there's always been, if you recall, the Ukraine scandal, which tied to Hunter Biden and that computer, etc. There is, Biden administration has had very strong, connectivity to the administration in Ukraine, and so there's some element of controversy spewing up. But having said that, Mr. Biden is receiving him today in White House and reassuring him the support against the Russians. Remember that there's still a strong belief in United States, especially within the present administration, the mongerings or the spillover of the Cold War.
And Australia is set to end COVID zero policy, and this is not the way to live, says the Prime Minister.
Well, I think at the drop of a hat, state after state has been shutting down, and the economy has been in shutdown for quite some time. Various states, not the nation as a whole. I think Australia is taking cue from Mr. Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson has stated, we got to get on with life, and this COVID is not going to go away. It's going to be with us because it's all over the world. It's not just in UK. It's not contained in UK. We got to get over. We have the vaccines. We are now vaccinating, and we have enough data to move on. I think Australia is mimicking the same policy because the economy is, slowly making its way down rather than holding its position. Australia has got three challenges. One is the shutdown. The second is the China, what you call as the de-acceleration of the Chinese trade. And third is that they're trying to establish new partners to augment, what otherwise they're losing out on their tip with the Chinese. I mean, Australia is not the only country. Several countries have similar issues, but Australia most notably because of the shutdowns.
And Japan earns fail grade on safeguards against money laundering and terror financing. Southeast Asia is on alert for Al-Qaeda and ISIS links after the Kabul attacks. Sir, how is this connection now? Southeast Asia suddenly active? That's thousands of kilometers away from Kabul, isn't it?
I think the connections are self-evident because Al-Qaeda is back. Al-Qaeda is back. Where's Al-Qaeda? Al-Qaeda was active in Indonesia. Al-Qaeda was active in Philippines. Al-Qaeda was trying to extend its tentacles into Thailand. So, and these were the places where there was money laundering and footprint of Al-Qaeda. So Al-Qaeda is fully vibrant and active. Recall going back in time during the George Bush administration, many of these fellows who were directly or indirectly behind 9/11 were arrested from those regions. So therefore, that is the reason why always when there is, what you call murmurs and activity in money transfers and money movements through Hawala rackets, which prevails in some parts of this world, this picks up. So it's very notable that Japan has been also flagged here, which is to say that their banking rule seems to be very loose in terms of money laundering activities. Hence, it becomes very important. And I think ASEAN security is also waking up to say, oh my God, these are there seems to be some activity, and Al Qaeda is back, which means that these sleeper networks may be waking up.
And Taiwan launches new English language channel news platform called Taiwan Plus. Sridharji, is this like CNN, like an international channel, or is it for Taiwan's internal consumption, sir?
Both. Taiwan's internal consumption first, and then to the external consumption. I think what Taiwan is doing is, which we'll touch a little bit in the Indian segment, is now Taiwan is saying, I got to wake up. I can't just be, I have to get the global community embracing me. I have to start communicating and sharing in a language which everybody understands. So therefore, I think that's where Taiwan is going. I think which is a very good step.
And South Africa detects new COVID variant, studying its mutations. Just when the world thinks that it has got a grip on a variation, the new variation rises its ugly head. Sridharji, a little bit perspective on this, and again, is it going to be? Are we headed for another lockdown? In your opinion, sir, what is happening now?
I don't think we're going to. See, unless you happen to be this liberal state where people don't want to work and people who work fund their existence, you're not going to see lockdowns. I think their whole goal was to achieve somewhere north of 70% vaccine, at least single dose vaccinations in the country, which wants to transact and do business, accepting that this is real. So what you're going to see is again the world polarized. Those who accept it once they get past the 70-75% threshold and say yes, there's going to be new mutations. This is not going to go away. I think you need to go back and look at the number of viruses that have come over the last 10 years. From bird flu, SARS, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a number of viruses that have evolved. The world has not shut down, and the world will not shut down. There was this unknown element, and there was fatalities that occurred. So there was apprehension, but I think you will find that people will get on with their lives, Sriji.
And Bolsonaro says Biden government is leftist and is obsessed with climate. It's been a while since we heard from Bolsonaro, and now he's saying that the Biden administration is leftist. So on the other side, I see that the storms are much more stronger in intensity. Like, for example, now Louisiana is being battered by a new storm, Ida. So I'm a little confused. Maybe you can help us understand this a little bit.
On which one, Ida or on Bolsonaro?
I'm talking about climate change and their obsession. How much, on the one side, you can say, yes, maybe they are obsessed with climate, but then you are seeing that the storms that are battering United States, the intensity seems to have picked up considerably. I'm just trying to balance it out, sir.
First and foremost, we have had storms in the Gulf Coast, perpetual. I mean, for going back in time. Okay, especially when you advance your way into reclaimed areas and look at whether you are how many levees that we have built in the southern Gulf. So therefore, I think to some extent, nature has its fury. But whether all of it relates to climate accord, is a two-sided opinion. One side of the opinion basically says that there is not enough kind of evidence to make it compelling. That is the rationale, with which one has to make changes. That is immediate. You need to manage the environment. There's no doubt. You need to manage the emissions. You need to manage the pollution levels. And whether that has a direct consequence or indirect consequence, some people believe it does. Then you have the opposite side, which is effectively to say, okay, fine. Let me say that Brazil implements, Latin America implements, North America implements. What happens if many of the African nations, China, and even they mentioned India, actually India probably is one of the first countries that may meet the climate goal. Japan, which has tried for almost 3-4 decades, has not been able to contain because it is still reliant on the old mechanisms. So the point is that while the climate issue may be one of the elements, how much you can destroy your economy and jobs, which is living today, to meet the specific targets is something that is being questioned by Mr. Bolsonaro.
Thank you on that clarification, sir. And viewers, if you want a more balanced look at climate change effects, the ozone layer, and so on, I have a hangout with Dr. Shiva Ayadurai. We did it about a year and a half ago, I think. And you can just go and look up Shiva Ayadurai in our channel. And his contention is that the ozone layer is elastic, whereas the other side says the ozone layer is being punctured, and that's why the carbon emissions are going up. So this is an unending debate, but at least you need to get the perspective on both sides. And let's take a look at the United States news. The US has completed its Kabul evacuation effort, ending its 20-year war in Afghanistan. The US has successfully evacuated all Afghan employees and their staff who were working in the Kabul embassy. No US military role in Afghan evacuation after Tuesday, says Pentagon. And hundreds of Americans are still in Afghanistan, says CENTCOM. State Department says it will find ways to rescue those left behind. In fact, they've even left behind guard dogs, sir, or sniffer dogs.
Yes. Look, I think first and foremost,
We are having a bit of a technical difficulty while you sort this out. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. So the war is over, and the story is that the 20-year war is complete, and you have seen one day before the deadline, people have left. Mr. Biden has met his word that he will leave. He will not extend the deadline. And then you have a whole swag of inconsistent news again coming back. Centacom saying that Pentagon will not have any role, and we have probably evacuated the best set of people. And if there are some Americans left behind, we can't do anything. We have no responsibility to have a mission. Then you have the State Department saying, first we have brought everybody back 2 days ago, and now they are saying that there could still be few Americans left behind. But one good news is those who have been working in the Kabul embassy, the Afghans who are helping, they all with their families have been brought back. So one of the challenges that we face here is we have no independent verification of any news. And what is making it complicated is inconsistencies of news being disseminated between the White House and the State Department and then the Pentagon. So therefore, this has consistently prevailed over the entire duration of this exit policy or exit strategy that has been deployed. Suffice to say that it is mission unaccomplished and mission that has cost United States and allies significant amount of money, and what it has left with is very bad and sour taste, and the world in a position that is far worse than where we were at the beginning of the 9/11.
And the Ida hurricane death toll is now expected to go up, says the Louisiana governor, with winds crossing 150 miles per hour in some locations and high storm surges. Biden pledges support to Gulf Coast in the wake of the storms. But overall, there is, I think, the level of the degree of the storm has been downgraded, isn't it, sir?
The degree of the storm has been downgraded from level 5 to level 4. I didn't want to use that as a parameter when you talked about the climate accord and the consequences of whether Ida relates to major changes in the climate patterns as a result of the EPA levels. But coming back to Louisiana and the Gulf Coast, yes, 1 million homes. Yes, there is no power supply as we come into the show anywhere in the state of Louisiana. There is severe devastation of businesses and individuals. And so therefore, again, FEMA has been Federal Emergency Management Authority, which is a federal program, has been activated. And as is the case, Mr. Biden has an open checkbook to borrow. So he has effectively stated that he is prepared to draw and support the FEMA program for the state of Louisiana. He's not talking about using his existing money that is unused, but he's talking about another drawdown.
And the United States has 10 major issues: COVID, vaccine, mask mandates, budgets, stimulus, border and illegal immigration, critical race theory, wokeism, nationalization of elections, abortion laws, social welfare, and Afghanistan. A Texas law banning abortions after detecting heartbeats will go into effect, and Education Department opens civil rights investigations into 5 states for banning school mask mandates. And Representative Dan Crenshaw from Texas says we are in a worse position now than on September 11. Let's take a look at the top 10 issues confronting the nation. Sridharji, your thoughts on that?
The purpose of laying this out is we'll probably have a fireside chat around this. You can do a matrix and daily global insights. You can tick which issue we are covering. Okay. So therefore, either it is abortion, or it is about mask mandates, or is it about vaccine mandates, or is it about lack of satisfaction around 1.1 trillion versus 3.5 trillion, or is it to do with we need to have more illegal immigrants coming in, or is it about more flights need to be sent? Having said that, my son, who is to come from Australia, two of his flights got cancelled, both going to California, and the answer given by one of the major airlines is that it is going to Afghanistan to do the refugees evacuation. It's not going to Afghanistan. It's probably going to one of the bases to pick up the people. So you have that. Then you have the critical race theory. Then you have the crime rates. So you can take a look where the United States is being assessed on a daily basis. You look at these parameters, and every day these are one of these 10 issues, or all of the 10 issues will be widely covered in the press now that the Afghanistan is over. So we will do a fireside where we will justify how do you convert a free market economy into a most perfect and idealistic socialistic state. Then this framework will help for people to understand that few work while the others enjoy.
And let's take a look at India news now. The sentiment between Taiwan and India has warmed considerably during the 5 years of the new southbound policy, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, says a Taiwan-based think tank. There is a need for deeper engagement in mid-level political and academic circles, a visiting expert on Taiwan-India relation said on Friday. So definitely the relations between Taiwan and India have warmed up considerably since Prime Minister Modi took office, sir.
Yes, indeed. August 15th or 16th, you can go and Google and pick up this the research. There was from Ministry of External Affairs, either the ambassador, there was a representative working with the Taiwanese scholars in terms of how to bring the two communities and the two nations together, which has very similar principles and so on. I think that's one meeting. The second, which just a couple of days ago concluded, where there was an Australian scholar from ANU who was at this Taiwan South Pacific or South China Forum. That was the meet, which is to say, how does Taiwan and Taiwanese community extend its influence and footprint and start communicating about themselves? And their conclusion is that they cannot stop at the government level. This must permeate into the wider sections of the community, especially the middle level and the lower level, not just politics, but politics, business, and even in academic, as to what is Taiwan, what is Taiwanese history, and what is its role, why this battle with the Chinese, and so on and so forth. So this augurs well for Taiwan as a nation, that it is looking beyond United States as the only country that it will take care of the interests it wants to involve the world.
And India wants border dispute resolution with China via dialogue and not unilateral actions, says Indian Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. Both India and China are seen developing infrastructure across the line of actual control. Discussions on establishment of joint commands and their implementation is progressing well, says the Defense Minister. Sridharji, your thoughts on what is playing along on LAC? And recently, I think Xi Jinping paid a visit to a point very, very close to the Arunachal border. They've got a high-speed rail system now between Lhasa and Ningxiang, I think, which is very, very close to the border. Your thoughts on what China is up to while it continues to want to speak, but they are keeping on moving the buffer zone towards India?
China is building up infrastructure, as has been covered by quite a few of the panelists in PGurus shows. China adopts a policy which is to say negotiate, consolidate, negotiate to consolidate. So they negotiate. India thinks that, okay, there's a concession, and then they silently slip and consolidate. So where do I see this going? India has built itself an infrastructure. India has probably not publicly conceded that some part of the Indian territory has been occupied. But what they're saying is that now we are ready, okay? And there seems to be confrontation is the only thing that seems to make a resolution to this specific matter. Yes, he was in Nanjing, or as you rightly kind of pronounced it, very close, about 20 miles or 30 miles or less than 50 miles to the Arunachal border, which is where the new, what you call the railway high-speed train, which comes from Lhasa. Their goal is to extend this all the way to the Tibetan plateau, where they have, sorry, into the Chinese province, where they have a very huge army base. That part is still incomplete. So they're building the infrastructure with the hope that one future day that they will be able to, launch the attack. The only thing that this could delay this is their Afghanistan expedition, and they may be distracted for some time on the Afghan side before they make some efforts here. So they can't go simultaneously into Taiwan, South China Sea, Afghanistan, and India for a nation that has not fought many battles in the past.
And viewers, to get a little bit more idea into how China looks at India, please do join us in about an hour's time while I discuss this evolving situation of China's role in Afghanistan, as well as why it continues to think that it can be aggressive towards India with Elmer UN. That's going to start at 7:30 p.m. IST. Do tune in. Let's take a look at the next news. India's COVID wave to peak between October and November, intensity to be less than second wave. Indian Navy supplies 100 metric tons of liquid oxygen in 5 containers and 300 oxygen concentrators to Vietnam. And these were delivered to Ho Chi Minh Airport or port. And India could soon be exporting COVID-19 vaccines as production levels jump. Sir, Covaxin is one of those amazing success stories that we don't get to hear about much, especially since they seem to have acquired another company which used to produce drugs for a different purpose, but they have repurposed that line to start producing vaccines, and they think in a couple of months' time they can have 20 crore on their own. On top of that, you have the Serum Institute coming up with 20 crores per month production, and very soon India would be a net vaccine exporter. This is going to be something that could be a game changer. That's the way I see it, sir. Your thoughts?
I think I couldn't agree with you more. I think the first wave they did that. The second wave they got caught out, assuming that the India was under control until the Delta variant hit India. I think they've learned their lessons, and most important, they are at that pivotal point, which is namely that number of dose ones, people who have received single doses, is reaching that very critical threshold point. By some estimates, now I got this clarification, the number of this 800 to 820 million eligible population is, the way they derive this number is those who are above 18 years old make up this 800 to 820 million. So it doesn't include all those who are below 18. So I think once they reach that specific goal, then it's a matter of getting those the second dose vaccinations through. So they reached the critical milestone. And you can see 40 crores, if I'm correct, it's about 400 million vaccines per month. That's a substantive amount of vaccines to be producing. They probably can take on the entire African continent and export 1 month supply or 2 month supply to make up. So I think that is how I see it. I endorse your sentiments. Any good story from India is not actively covered by the mainstream media. Anything which is adversarial seems to be the coverage, even in the global media, which is dominated by the left-wing mindset. They only will talk about active cases. They don't talk about what was the net active cases, whether it is reduced or increased on a day-by-day basis. But this vaccine stuff is very good. I think Covaxin you mentioned. I think Covaxin, they have also they have come up with two interesting combinations. One, they have stated that those who are affected, they can be just given one vaccine and get away. They don't need 2 vaccines, 2-dose vaccines. That's one set of research. And the other set of research is that you do not need anything specific for the Delta variants. You may need the booster, but you don't need anything specific. The Covaxin can tackle the Delta variants. All that augurs well, besides the acquisition that you are alluding to.
And Indian COVID cases continue to climb, with more cases from Kerala, and India's net active cases reduced by about 684, and the total active cases stands at 370,640. India vaccinates 644.8 million doses, and the single dose number is just below the 500 million mark. Given the density of population and the way India has gone about it, and despite some very nasty comments by news outlets, India has managed to hit the mark before the end date, and it continues to forge ahead. Sridharji, this is one of those things that we must tip our hat to Prime Minister Modi, because he made it his mission to make sure that India has its vaccines, the population gets its vaccines to keep the country safe. So there is a lot of stuff that goes on. A very complex country to govern. They may have some holes here and there, but overall, the Modi government has done a stellar job in managing the COVID crisis. That's my opinion, sir. I don't know what you think.
No, I think I tend to endorse your sentiments that you have expressed, which is one of the reasons why in DGI we focus and talk about things that is generally non-political, but more focused around, what the economic developments, the strategic issues around security, the partnerships that India is building, the trade partnerships that India is building. They are factoring in the issues around, in the event of US relationship and some restrictions coming in, how they build alternative, etc. I think we are trying to cover those facets to India as a nation. To your point around Mr. Modi around this vaccinations are also driven by what the states can do. In many, if you recall, in phase 2, he gave away the responsibility to the states, and the whole thing fell apart, and then the center took it back. This is to those pundits who basically said, hey, you can't rule everything from the center. That's just purely a political statement which comes from renegades. I mean, COVID is a very classic example of that. And second, I think, around this whole monetization, there's a lot of criticism. But the story is that India was centrally managed. It was a command economy. It was a socialist communist model. Everything managed from the center, with almost 65% of the taxes being held back by the center. So for people to sit back and talk about what it is it sounds like, it's very hypocritical. But on the vaccines, yes, the point is that they regained control. They have supplied vaccines, and they gave mandates to the states to accomplish, and states want to show off that they want to build a very strong domestic economy in their own states. And people also saw the migration of the weak labor population coming back to their home states, especially when they were confronted with adversity. Anyway, so that in a summary on, I went a little bit around, but these are all the parameters which make things, within the context of some centralized management versus decentralized.
And in markets, the S&P 500 set another record high on Monday as the stock market continued to rise in the final days of August. The accommodative Fed policy of low interest rates without inflation fears is one reason, and energy stocks are expected to rise on the back of reopening economies. Sridharji, your look at the market and what is headed today for the investors.
Right. Today, the markets are already up on the back of, to finish the 7th continuous month of earnings up, markets up, not earnings, markets up. So therefore, we'll finish August as well as a very strong month for all indices. The key headlines are the Jackson Hole Summit confirmed that while there is the inflation headwinds, that inflation will moderate. The Fed has confirmed that they will not increase the interest rates in the near future, which gave a thumbs up on Friday, but they will reduce the asset purchase program, which is effectively funding the corporates, because there's tremendous amount of cash and stimulus. With low interest rates, the cost of funds is as well, lower for institutions to borrow. So in a summary, the inflation is also rearing up, but the government says, so the Fed says that it will moderate over a period of time. Inflation is as a result of the pent-up demand. So which shows the market indexes rising. And I think we have stated repeatedly in DGI, 2021 will be one of the good or stellar years as far as markets go. There will be gyrations, but we'll finish the year well ahead of the second targets for the major indexes. The first target was 4,400 for S&P. We have gone past that. The new target that has been set is 4,700. So which is at about 4,528 as we complete 8 months. As far as the energy stocks is concerned, you can see the oil and the Brent stocks we have shown even the graphs, the prices are beginning to move up. We are in the 69.73 band as far as crude and Brent is concerned, or oil and Brent is concerned. So that is simply implying that the demand is picking up momentum as a result of the reopening of economies around the world, not just in the United States.
And a word on the digital currency, sir, where they are headed?
The digital currencies are, as I have stated, it will finish the year somewhere between 65,000 to 75,000. I don't know whether we will hit 100,000 on the Bitcoin. There has been a positive momentum. Now, besides Dubai, Singapore has also announced creation of a crypto exchange. And the first institution has been given the permission. There's more than 30, 40 institutions awaiting the clearance. In the United States, the major funds, financial institutions are beginning to advocate. So this is the situation as far as the crypto and its adoption is concerned. There's always one person who is our few set of people who are adversarial, and Mr. John Paulson is one of them. He says, crypto is junk. I'm putting my money on energy and gold, but not on crypto. So therefore, remember, John Paulson is the man who did the mortgage bet, and he was very successful. That was, you guys call it as a one single trade. A man makes one single trade and becomes successful. That's John Paulson's trade.
Yes, indeed. And with that, we've come to a close of today's Daily Global Insights. And thanks for watching, and do subscribe, and you are liking our program. We appreciate that. Do subscribe, do share it on Facebook if you happen to be watching on Facebook. We are also on newer platforms such as LinkedIn and Twitch, and we may be adding a few more platforms in the days and weeks to come. Stay tuned and do join us in 1 hour's time to listen to Elmer Yuan on how he sees China's role in Afghanistan, especially with Taliban. Namaskar, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Namaskar. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.